we're going to open them, and they will be at the bottom of the display. There they are. Now this one is DF intro. Let's click and drag to bring this up. Okay, so what we have here is the DF intro, followed by my audio track that I made. Put that about there. We need the Fire Blast. Where'd that go? Put that about there. Well, there. Yeah. Ish. See, I'm doing this very fast. I don't normally go this fast. And then put, well, yep. So what we've got works for me. Gonna need another one of those Fire Blasts though. Project, import audio. One more Fire Blast divider, please. You can also copy and paste if you want them on the same line, but it's really not that important. Just adds another track is all this does. So let's scroll back up. I don't know about you, but I like to have what I'm actually working with kind of at the top area. Just because that makes it easier for me with a frame of reference. Older things go to the bottom, you know? Alright, so we've got a couple Fire Blasts in very quick succession. Generally your chatter is going to be a lot longer, so you won't have to worry about that. But if we listen to most of this anyway, we will find that oh, let's just start it over from the beginning since you haven't heard the intro yet.
You have been listening to Dragonfire, produced by Save the Shows Production. For more information, go to Save the...
And already we have a problem. You notice that the intro and the outro are playing at the same time, which really doesn't work that well. So I'm going to go ahead and for now, I'm going to hit the mute button on the outro. You can tell it's the outro because it says DF outro. Mute. And there you go. By the way, quick little tidbit that you could learn on your own very easily, but that I'll tell you anyway. If you want to change the name of an audio track to make it easier to tell for you, you can go click the track up there just like I did. You can click name, and I'll just change this to Mike's Chatter. And there you go. Alright, so now let's try that one more time with the DF outro muted.
Dragonfire by Arkansas Dragon.
Produced by Save the Shows Productions.
We do not own American Dragon Jake Long or any of its characters. These belong to Disney Incorporated. The stories told in this program are the intellectual property of their respective owners.
Okay, obviously there's some problems. For one, the DF intro should not still be playing once the actual podcast starts to play. So first, to fix that, we're going to find there it is, fake podcast. Definitely starting a little too early, I think. So we're gonna slide that over to here or so. I just made a mistake with the placement, actually. That's my fault. Put the Fire Blast divider about here. And the other Fire Blast divider. Wow, I screwed this up bad. Yep. Put the other Fire Blast divider. You can see how this would be a challenge. Put the other Fire Blast divider at the end of the podcast. Okay. So now what we should have is a very well done podcast, right? So let's just play from about the point where the actual podcast is going to start. Oh, wait, sorry, forgot about the chatter. The chatter is just kind of randomly sitting there currently. let's go ahead and put that before the podcast starts. So right after this first fire blast is when that's going to happen. Slide that down a little bit just so we can make sure. All is well. This is kind of messed up, I'm sorry. There we go. Hey all, Mike Kane here, and you're listening to the Fake Podcast. Okay, let's run this through one more time.
Dragonfire by Arkansas Dragon.
Produced by Save the Shows Productions.
We do not own American Dragon Jake Long or any of its characters. These belong to Disney Incorporated. The stories told in this program are the intellectual property of their respective owners.
I see you standing on the other side of the room. Do you find yourself so lost, or are you confused? Don't you hear?
Hey all, Mike Kane here, and you're listening to the Fake Podcast by Save the Shows. Okay, minor issue right there. As you can see, once the podcast starts, the intro music really ought to fade out, but it doesn't. So let's go ahead and fix that. For that, we're going to use the ducking tool. Now, in order to use the ducking tool, you actually have to make a couple pretty precision clicks. We want to edit the DF intro file. So, we're going to click first to set the point where we want the audio to kind of start fading out, about here-ish. Then we're going to click again later, and this is a pretty movable point. We're just going to click somewhere where we want the audio to kind of stop fading out, and then what we do is click and drag on either of these 2 points that we've made to shrink or to grow the audio level. So for this sake, I kind of want it to go like this. That's a pretty good duck right there. Then I'm also going to switch back to the selection tool, and as you can see, my changes stayed. And then this time around, I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. I'm going to cut out the rest of this since we don't need it. And for this part, I'm going to use the automated fade out. Take this section here and just say effect, sorry, not generate, effect, fade out, right there. And that will automatically fade out for me. So now let's give it a shot.
Lost, or are you confused?
Hey all, Mike Kane here, and you're listening to the Fake Podcast by Save the Shows Productions. This podcast is mainly for Megan and will really do no good to anyone else, so please feel free to stop listening now. For more on this podcast and other podcasts, visit savetheshows.com.
It was night. The wind whipped at her long golden braid as she stared at the dragon in front of her. He looked about the same age as she was. Bright red with gold belly scales and green spines down his back. There was a crystal skull in her hand, and she carried a bladed staff. All around her were statues of gargoyles, each with a glowing crystal skull in its mouth. Bright beams of light connected the skulls. All around her and the dragon, heavily muscled warriors were fighting with 3 other dragons. 2 of the dragons were female, a small pink one, and an older blue, green, and yellow. The last was an elderly Chinese male, who was dark blue, with gold belly scales. Each of the warriors wielded a bladed staff, and each wore a dragon skull for a helmet.
Skull, hand me the skull and finish him.
She looked to her right. A man was standing there, his black cape fluttering out behind him. He was without a helmet, but obviously the leader of the hunters. His head was bald and his black eyes were fierce. The front of his uniform was torn to reveal a large dragon-shaped birthmark across his chest, the dragon's head on the left side of his face.
Alright, doing pretty good so far, but we are missing one key factor. Always remember, when you mute a file, that at some point you have to unmute it, otherwise when you go to save as an MP3, it's not going to be saved along with the rest of the file. Here we have our fake podcast.